Hello, 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 hello. We are back. Brand new episode of the Uncovering Greatness podcast. As always, I am your host, Sully, and I'm super excited to be back. I wish I had an excuse for why we didn't have a podcast last week, but I don't have one. So I'm just going to take responsibility and go with it and pretend like we have one. So today I'm joined by Nicole Mitchell. Nicole Mitchell is the lead processor at Uncovering Greatness, and what she helps you do is get you out of the way of you. I always find that one interesting because, like, when we ask that at events, how many of you can, are in your own way, and people put their hands up, and then you start to teach and they get back in their own way. It's the weirdest thing to watch, and it's crazy because I know that I do it as well. But Nicole is, yes, she's the lead processor at Uncovering Greatness, and in my opinion, the greatest processor on the planet. For those of you who don't know what a processor is, I will leave that up to Nicole to give you an explanation. But we've been talking about processing for the past few episodes of the podcast, and I've really enjoyed it, and it's been super awesome to see how much you guys have enjoyed it. So we're carrying it on, we're keeping it going. Nicole, how are you doing? What's going on?
Good. I'm good, thank you, Sully. It is good to be back. Yes, missed, I'll say for me, the last 2 weeks of doing the podcast, but I believe you had a great podcast with Christopher Baxter.
Yes.
And Barry, which was great. And then, so it's exciting just to keep going with the podcast and keep chatting about processing.
Yes, processing. And you said, when was it? I can't remember, like a month ago or 2 months ago, you said something to me which has stuck with me. And you said, as a processor, what I do is, I do what therapists do, only better. Oh, man. That was a beautiful line. I love that. And I think that's, for those of you who don't know, I think that's probably one of the best ways to describe it. It's like what a therapist does only better. And I think the more we've been talking about it, the more I've started to really go. And I think, sorry, if I can give it context, in my last processing session, we mapped out a few events that have happened in the past 6 months of this year for me. And that was like mind-blowing because I never thought about it. It's not something that I was consciously thinking about. And I feel like that's the beauty of processing. It's like you can map out a situation, a time when something happened that caused this whole upheaval, or well, it can be a negative or positive to have taken place, and it's incredibly awesome. And today I'm super excited about what we're going to be talking about, because we are talking trauma. One of Nicole's favorite words of all time. No, so we will be touching on trauma, but we're going to just continue on the talk about processing. And I mean, last week was World Mental Health Day.
Yes, last week Thursday was World Mental Health Day.
That was an interesting, because I'm out, like, and I put out a post, and I wasn't sure, do you say Happy World Mental Health Day? Or like, it's so weird how this mental health thing works. So what is your take on something like World Mental Health Day, like the importance of something like that?
Well, so I think if we just take a step back,
yeah.
There's a lot that you've said already, but so if I go back to, what is processing? And processing is basically, it's just a way to help you get your attention either unstuck or get your attention on something that you're avoiding. And that's how you know if something is an issue in your life. One, you talk about it all the time, or two, you never talk about it. So, a lot of people have a lot of stuff around money, and they never talk about money. Or the opposite, they're talking about it all the time. So with processing, we just help you sort of find those areas in your life that are actually causing an issue. And that's how we help you get yourself out of the way of you. Then to go back I do what therapists do only better is, and the reason why I can say that is because we're not looking for what's the issues now. We're looking for the cause and the root cause of what actually has caused the issue. And generally you can map out and you can plot out somebody's timeline as to when things changed. So when something changed, then you can look and go, okay, cool, something happened before there was a change, and that's what's caused the issue. And so it's when we start looking at Mental Health Day, it's, do you understand what mental health actually is? And it's like trauma. Celia and I were having the conversation about trauma before, and I said, it's such a buzzword, and mental health has become a buzzword, but do people actually understand what it means? And, you can be traumatized by a positive experience as well as a negative experience. For example, a wedding. A wedding can be very traumatic, even though it is a positive experience. Why? Because you're in distress. You've got to meet your in-laws for the first time. You've got to deal with things you don't know about. You've got to plan things, So trauma, when people say, oh, I've had a lot of trauma in my life, well, is it negative or is it positive? And that's where, with mental health, a lot of people talk mental health, but they don't actually understand what it means. And so that would be the first question to any of you who are listening to this podcast. What is your understanding of mental health? Because most people talk it, but don't actually understand what it is. And it's like, for me, mental health is, can you put your attention on anything, anywhere, at any time? If you can do that, your mental health is good. Okay. If you cannot do that, your mental health is not great. So can you have a conversation with somebody about, for want of a better word, your mother-in-law? And do your emotions go up when you start, do you know that she came into my house and... Well, then your mental health is not okay. Because why? Your mother-in-law changes the state of your mental health.
Yeah.
But it's connected to emotions, because your mother-in-law triggers certain emotions which affects your mental health.
You said, I want it to be clear, and it's good that we're recording this. You said the word trigger. So you brought up another buzzword of 2024.
A trigger, yes.
A trigger. So, like you're saying, and it's funny, it seems like a lot of mother-in-laws like to rearrange houses and stuff like that.
That's what they
Rearrange your own house.
Yes.
Don't rearrange my house. No, so would you say something like that? So let's just say, like, mother-in-law comes over, rearranges the house, and now you're talking about something completely... So we had a conversation about mother-in-laws, completely different. It's not about rearranging the house. So you're saying that I can get, just by saying mother-in-law, I can get triggered to that moment where she's in my house, tearing things apart.
Absolutely, and that's what a trigger does. A trigger is something that causes a past memory to play. So what's playing in the moment someone says mother-in-law, immediately the past memory is, she was here this weekend and she rearranged my furniture, or she was here this weekend and she did this. Exactly the same things happen in business. So, a client says to you, send me an email. And immediately you get triggered into every other email that you haven't sent, or a time where you're terrified of making a spelling mistake on an email or something like that, and so you don't send the email. And where does that come from? It doesn't come from the email. It comes from, maybe at school you were a bad speller and the class laughed at you and made fun of you. And so that's what you're getting triggered into. That's why emails are so difficult for you to send.
Yeah, that was like just another smashing example, because I was just sitting and was it last week? Yeah, it was last week when Barry's in the office. It's so chaotic. He moves around he has so much energy. It's crazy. But we were talking about proposals, that he is writing a few proposals and things of that nature, and he was getting tired. He just wasn't doing it. Is that the same thing? Because now you're talking about, so for example, he was talking about tiredness and just feeling foggy now all of a sudden. And so is that something that can also happen with triggers of a situation that can really mess with you in your entirety?
Yeah, absolutely, because so I'm avoiding doing proposals. Why? Because they remind me of a boss that I used to have that used to give me a hard time around doing proposals. And everyone I ever submitted, he made me rewrite, and he used to put a red line through them, and that also reminded me of school. So now, even though it's a completely different business, a completely different boss, a completely different thing, now I've got to go write the proposal, and suddenly I'm resisting it because it's hard work, because I'm reminded of all the red lines that got put through my last proposals and how I could never get it right. So now, even though it's a different situation, suddenly I start feeling tired, I'm exhausted, then we go for a walk. Oh, this proposal's really hard, and it's taking me a lot of my time, but all it is that word proposal triggers and reminds us of so many things. That's why we can't do it.
I mean, and that would be the same for so let's just say you're bringing in, as a business owner or entrepreneur, you bring in somebody new to the team, somebody new's arrived, and you then immediately make the comparison. Just a question. You make the comparison. Oh, this person's they're lazy, just like the last sales guy that we had. It's just a trigger that takes you back to that person, and now all of a sudden you're doing comparisons that you probably shouldn't do.
So we land up projecting things on this person, and then they actually become that because this person's lazy, and we look for all the reasons to prove that they're lazy. Check, you see, they didn't park their car straight. You see, they're too lazy to park their car straight. Really? Doesn't matter? But that's what we do. We look for reasons to prove that what we think is correct, and then we start, and then we go, you see. And we look for people to go into agreement with us. Did you check? Did you see that they didn't put the milk back in the fridge? The fact that the milk bottle was empty and they threw it in the dustbin is irrelevant. Yeah. In that moment you're going, no, they didn't put the milk back in the fridge. We don't look for the things that they did do because we want to justify and prove that we are correct, because their name is, I don't know, Larry, and Larry, the last salesperson that was called Larry, was useless and lazy. So
just like Larry.
And so that's exactly what happens, is we look and we try and prove our theories are correct, and so we end up projecting this stuff, and it becomes a case of your mother, go back to the mother-in-law thing, she's just interfering. Look, see, we go and we try and find excuses to prove that we are correct, instead of looking at what is actually happening. What does my mother-in-law trigger and remind me of? Well, if I'm completely honest, she reminds me of my own mother, who used to come and reorganize my bedroom when I was away and put everything, and it's like, oh, it's not actually my mother-in-law that's the problem. It's actually me. When I was younger, I never put my stuff away, so any chance my mom got, she'd come and clean up my room.
I mean, that's an interesting one, because so Barry kind of gave a similar example back in the circle last week. Don't forget we have another circle this week, just so you guys know. Where he was speaking about something similar, and for him, it wasn't a big deal. So for him, it's like, just let her rearrange it. It is what it is. And for you, it's like, no. For me, it is a big, same instance, same situation, two very different reactions.
Correct.
Both justified.
Yep.
And I think sometimes that's where people get it wrong, right? It's like, especially in the workplace, it's like, no, what I feel is what I feel. But it's like, okay, cool, but somebody else made it look like we, for example, with the game, we joke and we always say, don't take things personal. Mm-hmm. But for her, in that situation, it may be personal based off something else that happened to her that she's now bringing forth that she hasn't processed, perhaps.
Absolutely, it's never personal, but we take it personally, and that's what creates the mental health issues. Is because people, instead of they go, yeah, Sully, you see, Sully's out to get me. He keeps making comments about my friends. And Sully's like, I don't understand, but you've got lots of friends. And I'm going, no, I don't. And you're going, yes, you do. You know, there's this. He has no idea that I've had a fight with half of those people, or they were my ex-boyfriend's friends, or he has no concept of that. And I will make it about Sully, and then every time I see Sully, I get upset, and then it becomes a mental health issue. Sully causes mental health issues in the workplace, when it actually has nothing to do with him. It's my stuff, it's my experiences, it's me that has the emotional connection to friends, and all he's trying to do it more often than not, he's actually trying to be helpful. But he has no concept of the fact that I lost all my friends, or one of my friends passed away, or who knows what happened. But he has no concept of that. And so in the workplace, what happens is, I see Sully, I start to get uptight because he's out to get me. And this is where I say mental health is a buzzword, because we know that we should be doing something about it, but we don't actually know what, because people don't understand mental health. They don't understand how it connects. And they think Sully's the issue. Sully's out to get me. When in truth, it actually has nothing to do with Sully. It has to do with me, my emotions, my thoughts, and the things that are consuming me.
So I had a different question, but what you just said there triggered a thought for me. Do you think that, especially when it comes to mental health, right? Can you read a book or read books and then my mental health problems are gone? I'm asking a question because I feel like that's what people are selling online, right? Like, read this book and all your mental health problems will be solved.
And I'm not going to say yes or no, but it's more than unlikely not, because a lot of things today de-access us. So they put our attention on something else. So if I go back to the example of, you make comments about my friends in the workplace, I'll use this example. Say I'm a salesperson and you're trying to help me sell, and you go, why don't you just phone your friends and try and sell something to your friends? Practice on your friends. And I go, you see, Sully's out to get me because he knows that, my friends and I had a fight this weekend. How would he know that? Like, in all honesty, 100%. How would he know that? Then I spend all my time trying to prove that Sully is the rotten egg, and so someone says, read this book. So I read the book, and the book says, oh, it's got nothing to do with Sully. And I go, oh, okay, cool. But I have not, and this is where I say, you get de-accessed, because, okay, Sully and I can be friends again, because now I've realized the book told me that Sully's not out to get me. But then somebody else comes and says, what's happening this weekend? Are you going out with your mates? Oh, you see, they're out to get me because they know that, my friend and other friend had a fight. And those emotions of feeling abandoned, betrayed, whatever, have not been dealt with. So often when we read a book or something, we kind of go, we find a little bit more truth and go, okay, so he's not the problem. In some instances, books will help you if you are willing to look at yourself and go, I need to be more responsible for that. So yes, books can help, but you have to be truly, truly honest. And most people don't know enough in order to be truly honest that Sully's not the problem. It's actually me that's the problem, because I keep having this pattern in my life where I blow friendships up. That's not an issue with Sully. That's my issue. And the moment I can be responsible for, oh wow, I blow friendships up, now I can change. A book may or may not give that to you.
Okay, so I read a book. No, I don't read a book. Because now, and I think that this is probably also something we've got to talk about since we've been talking about processing and what you do. So I get the awareness, right? Let's just go with I read a book, right? I read, I don't know, Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth. I learn these things and it's awesome. But now I need to find a way to put it into play. From a processing perspective, where does my journey start with you? So I come to you, or you guys can find all Nicole's information online. What's the process? What are we doing? How are we making this work?
So the very first thing is, it's what do you want? Do you want my help? Because a lot of people come to me and they tell me all this stuff, but they're actually not looking for my help. They actually just want me to hear all their sob stories.
Okay. So they just want to talk.
Yes.
Okay,
people
cool.
just want to talk.
Okay.
They just want to tell me all their stuff. They're not actually interested in helping themselves grow. They just want to complain, moan, woe is me, no problem. So the very first thing is, do you want to get better?
Yeah.
Do you want to shift and change? And so often I do make it difficult for people to get a hold of me sometimes, or because I want to see how serious are they about wanting help. Because people will say, yes, I want help, I want to change, but then they're not willing to read a book. So, sometimes it's just as simple as, I'll give you a book to read here, read the book. And it may take some people 3 days to read that book, and then other people 6 months to read the book.
Yeah.
Well, if it's taken you 6 months to read the book, well, you're probably not that interested in getting help.
Yeah.
So that's the very first thing, is how honestly do you want to get help? And then the next thing is, I always say to people, well, we need to get you started. So the very first thing would be, in terms of, do you want to do a life plan? Do you want to find out where you are, and in terms of your life? What is it that you want? Once I know what you want, then now I'm in a position to help you. But if you don't know what you want, and you don't really want to get better, well, then I'm not going to be able to help you.
So you would say that, and this is such an important thing, right? And I almost knocked other professions there. Sorry. You don't do this for the money. Because my brain would tell me that, dude, if you give somebody a book and they take however long they take to do it is irrelevant. Because if you're doing it for the money, you take their money and listen to their sob stories, right?
Correct.
So this is, why do you do what you do?
Why do I do what I do? Because I know how much my life changed because of Alan Walter's technology. And I know how much processing changed my life. And it took me from a very dark place in my life to a place where I found purpose. And so for me, that's what it's about. It's about helping people become educated, because who do you ask for help?
Yeah.
People, and this is where it's not about, knocking psychiatry, psychologists. Everybody has their place, okay? And, it's not about knocking drugs, because everything has its place. But if you don't know who to ask for help, and someone says to you, go see my psychiatrist, and the first thing you do, you walk in and the psychiatrist says to you, you need to take these pills. And you're instinctively going, I don't really want to take the pills. And they're saying, no, there's no other, that this is the way I work.
Yeah.
Then, and this is one of the challenges with mental health, is people don't know enough about what they can do. And so it's just understanding there are some very key things that you can do to shift your mental health without seeing psychiatrists and psychologists. And so for me, that was one of the reasons why I do what I do is because I want to educate people on it's not as difficult as the world makes it seem. Please don't get me wrong. It's not easy. Okay. But it is simple, and there are some very simple things you can do. And, starting off with gratitude. Can you start looking for things to be grateful for in your life? And just that alone, if you practice gratitude every day for 30 days, I guarantee you, your mental health will shift. It's that simple. Because you are putting your attention on the positive. You are also putting your subconscious attention on something else, which is positive. And that's where a lot of mental health issues come from. They come from, it's not what we know, it's what we don't know, and it's what's happening in our subconscious that actually is the issue with mental health.
So would you say it's like, so you said that what we don't know, so would you say it's projection of the future in a sense? So like, not even 5 years, next week I want to do X, like in the workplace, and next week I want to close 10 deals. And then you don't close the 10 deals, and that messes with your mental health.
So yeah, that's one way to look at it. But even just understanding that you can do a simple exercise like gratitude to change how you feel right now, to help you become more active so that you can do more. Something as simple as going to the gym. Going to the gym every single day will affect your mental health. Why? Because you are taking action, your body is moving. And so something like a state change, just get up out of your chair and stand up, can change the way you are feeling in the moment. The average person today doesn't know that.
Yeah.
Instead, we get, have a piece of chocolate cake. It'll make you feel better.
Have some coffee.
Have some coffee, it'll wake you up. Yeah.
That's literally what coffee has been sold as now, right?
Correct.
It's been sold as the thing to wake you up and get going, like have a good strong cup of coffee. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of ads now from new coffee companies that are popping up. And so the first part is, this is the state you're in. Once you have the coffee, this is the state you're in. You're talking about like state changes. Whereas you can save yourself $30 and just write down gratitude.
But also understand what does coffee do to your adrenal glands. Understand what it does to your health. So a lot of times, for example, sugar, you sitting here and you like, I need a pick-me-up, so we go have a chocolate bar, we land up here, and then we start doing stuff, and then we crash and burn, and we land up way down here an hour later because the sugar high has caused a crash. And so do you know enough about your body to understand that coffee can do the same thing? If you are drinking 6 cups of coffee a day, I can guarantee you stop drinking coffee for 2 days and you'll have a detox headache.
Yeah.
Because your system becomes so needy of that coffee. Well, if that is the case, you shouldn't be having that many cups because you're relying on an adrenal high, not a sugar high. For some people, it just depends on what your system does. But understand that that is not going to change your mental health. And so it may make you feel better in the moment, but in an hour's time or 2 hours' time, how are you feeling? Can you eat a meal and after the meal go, I'm full, and get up and walk away from the table? Or are you still looking for things to eat after you finished a meal? Because if you are, there's something not 100% in terms of you are relying on food to make you feel better.
They're called emotional eating.
Yep, same thing.
That's what they call it.
And emotional eating is part of our mental health. And most of our mental health issues come from our emotions and not dealing with our emotions. It's that simple.
You know why this is why I just threw my arms up in the air, because we can turn around and say emotional eating. Why don't we call it mental health eating? You know what I mean? Like,
correct.
That's the one time we can tie emotion. Are you eating because you were sad? You eat. but we don't actually call it that when it has to do with your
Yep. And this is why I say is that people are so focused on mental health, but what does it actually mean? And the average person has no idea what it means because it is linked to our emotions. What is our emotional well-being? And if you are in a great mood, you're feeling positive, you're happy, you know, how much more activity can you do? How much more productive are you? And you just have to put yourself into a space where you think of something you enjoy doing. So maybe you do woodwork or crafting or beading or something. Think of a hobby and put yourself in there and go and do it. Well, where does the day go? Like this. It's gone like in split seconds.
Yeah.
Because why? You're in a good space. You're enjoying it. You're loving what you do. There's no trauma attached to it or anything like that. And you are doing and you are being who you're supposed to be being. And so in that moment you're present and the time goes quickly. Why? Because you're not stuck in all the emotions of work, this, that, whatever. And it's some people throw themselves into those things to hide away from emotions. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about when you are doing something because you enjoy doing it, you've got lots of time, you can do it, and it just feeds your spirit. Then you know that and if it's feeding your spirit, it makes you feel better because it's making you happy, you can be way more productive. And so in the workplace, if you are in a positive space, emotionally, you can be way more productive. As opposed to like when we're talking about doing proposals, where you get triggered into, oh, I'm tired, oh, this is exhausting, and it takes you 3 hours to do something that should take 5 minutes.
Because it don't feed your spirit.
Because it is triggering an emotion which is disconnecting you from spirit.
So if you deal with that, and I think this is also important when we say deal with it, or you put your attention on it, or any things that Nicole says, it's not a thing of, okay, I'm now aware of it, now it's going to change the next second. Correct? Just so I'm clear. It's just because you have the awareness does not mean you have dealt with it. And this is where so many people will tell me, yes, but I've dealt with that. Yes, I had a traumatic childhood. I've dealt with that. And so the moment somebody says, I've dealt with it, I can almost 95% tell you there's still something attached to it, which is why they say I've dealt with it. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because I know that I've been processing past few years, and it has a lot of it has had to do with my childhood. And I was always like, I'm kidding. I said I've dealt with it. I'm good. I'm moving forward. And just last week, I got a message from an aunt that I haven't spoken to in like 20 years, maybe. Oh my goodness, did the emotions went up, and I literally shot straight back to being 10 years old. And I went, what is happening right now? Why is this? I thought I dealt with this. But if there's anything that I've learned from processing is you're continuously dealing with it. You always, yes, you have the awareness on it, it's there, you understand it, you know what's happening. But the emotions are still going to come up, right? It's not to say that they're going to vanish.
Well, once you've processed the emotions, you are then in control of the emotions, then it's not going to come up because you're in control of it. The problem is most people are completely unaware of how emotions control them, and therefore they talk about stuff and then they go, no, I've dealt with it. But the moment something comes up, it's you know they haven't dealt with it because the emotions, and like you say, you go right back to being 10 years old when you were sitting, being screamed and yelled at or whatever it was. So how do you know if you've dealt with something? You can talk about it freely at will. So I can, in terms of, so let's say I have an eating disorder.
Yep.
How do I know if I've dealt with that eating disorder? well, I can go and sit down at the table, I can eat anything, anywhere, at any time with anyone, or I could eat in front of the TV or at a restaurant, and there's no emotions connected to it. So let's say I have an eating disorder, and so I never used to sit at the dinner table. The greatest gift I can give myself is go sit at the dinner table.
Yeah.
And go, well, what's happening? Okay, so, and basically be in the heat and pressure, deal with the emotion to the point that I can sit at the table without any of those emotions coming up. Then I must go to the next step. Can I sit in front of the TV and eat, whether I get interrupted or not?
Yeah.
Can I sit at the table and get interrupted by people? Can I sit at the table? Can I go to a restaurant and listen to a couple fighting next to me? Because those were all the triggers from my childhood, as my dad screaming and yelling or what have you, which is why I have an eating disorder, for example. Or, maybe my mom used to, force me to eat food that I didn't like, or whatever it is, and that's where it is. We don't know all the things, so you have to put yourself in so many different circumstances and know that there's no emotion coming up. Then you know you've dealt with it. Then there's no emotion. Then yes, you've dealt with it. But one of the things that happens in society today is just because I spoke about it means I've dealt with it. And that is not the case. Yeah. Unfortunately, I really do wish it was. But
it's beautiful.
It would be. But
I don't think you'd do what you do if that was the case. If you could just speak about the thing and be done with it. Yeah, it would be easy. Yeah, life would be
super easy.
Life would flow.
But also would be easy for my clients too, because come tell me your story, and everybody would be processing, and it would be, but it doesn't work like that.
You'd be doing 10-minute sessions, just getting it out, and it out, and it out.
And it's like, let's say, for example, I grew up in a household where my dad was an entrepreneur, and let's say he lost his business and he had to go back to work. Okay. And so as a result, we didn't have any money for, 2 years. So, and this is where people don't realize how things get into their brain and affect them mentally, because they don't realize that incident of my dad, for example, losing a business, could affect my ability to start a business, or my ability to make money, or my ability to connect with people. The moment I connect with somebody and they say they're an entrepreneur, I go, sketchy dude, not interested, thanks. And so what happens is, I see you as an entrepreneur, and instead of having a wonderful relationship with you and maybe we get married or whatever, immediately I go, not interested, because and so something as simple as someone like my parents losing a business can affect relationships. It can affect my ability to make money. It can affect my ability to connect with people. It can affect my, so many different things. And this is the challenge with mental health, is that a lot of people don't realize how it filters through to every area in their life. And we kind of go, oh, no, I know about entrepreneurs. They steal all your money. They lose your money. So and so without us even realizing, and then we feel bad because, well, Sylvia was actually a really nice guy. I don't know why I didn't like him. There was not, if I think back, and so, all those emotions start to play out, and we kind of go, well, I don't know why we didn't become friends, or,
what was the
issue?
Disconnect there?
I don't know. And Sylvia's going, I don't know why Nicole didn't like me, but it was because my parents lost a business how many hundreds of years ago. And that's the challenge with mental health, is that people do not realize how something seemingly insignificant filters through into every area in their life.
So my final question, I've been sitting on this one, because I have a viewpoint on it, but I would like to hear from an expert. So a lot of what we see nowadays, especially around mental health, is, and I would say probably like maybe 35 to 45% of it is being blamed on what people are consuming on social media. What's your take? Because you also have social media.
So it's what are you using social media for? And it can be blamed on social media, and this is where it's a very grey area, because yes, social media can become addictive. A lot of people are, like, instead of going for a walk, they use social media as an excuse not to go for a walk, which then does affect their mental health, because then they beat themselves up because I didn't do what I said I was going to do. And so now I'm feeling guilty because I said I was going to take my dog for a walk. Now my dog's, doing X, Y, and Z and chewing the furniture, and now it's my fault, and blah, blah, blah. All because I spent an hour on Facebook instead of... And so it's like anything. We can choose to blame anything for our state of mental health. I mean, you can go back in terms of apartheid and racism and all those things. We can blame anything on anything if we choose to. We can justify anything. However, what you consume on social media is what's important. Because, yes, if you are sitting looking at, I don't know, farm murders in South Africa all the time...
That was a big one.
Well, that is going to affect your mental health, because you're only seeing negative stuff. So yes, it will affect your mental health. But if you are, and this is why I say it doesn't matter what you choose, whether it's social media or whatever, you can find anything to justify why you are the way you are. The problem with social media is that we have access to so much stuff that people don't realize how much they're taking in. I mean, would you go and buy a book on murders?
Ooh.
Well, and if the answer is no, well, why are you watching farm murders? Why are you watching CSI all the time? Why, and NCIS and whatever programs on murders? But this is where social media is very discreet, because we don't see it like that. We don't see that I'm consuming all this stuff on murders all the time.
100%.
But if you were to go and buy a book, you probably wouldn't buy a book with a whole lot of graphic pictures on murders and what, But yet, with social media, we open ourselves up to that, and we don't see how much of it we are consuming, how much time we are actually spending watching murders. So are you aware of how much time you're actually spending on a particular subject? And that's the problem with social media, is that people are not aware.
Boom. That is honestly, I couldn't agree more with you there. And I love the analogy of when you go buy a book on murders. Because I think that's exactly what it is. You wouldn't. Well, most people wouldn't go and buy a book.
Some people would.
Sorry guys, my bad. I'd go buy a book on serial killers, right? Why? Because I find them fascinating. But more so because of, like Nicole if you map it out, there's a situation that led them to where they were at. There's emotions that they never dealt with that got them to where they are. And I always find that fascinating. But I genuinely believe that, what you're consuming on social media is entirely up to you. You can put Facebook down. Yeah, put Instagram down. But using it as I feel like it's a cop-out, especially when it comes to your mental health. That's just my viewpoint.
See, for those who are watching this podcast, they are investing in improving their mental health.
No. You should watch this. You should watch all of this. And there's a whole bunch more you should watch that. I mean, there's You versus You from like 2013 when Nicole's been teaching for a long time, guys. You should watch that, because that will only help you get better. And we want to help you get better and do better so we can have a better world, ultimately. So, thank you guys for watching. It has been awesome doing another episode of the Uncovering Greatness podcast with Nicole. I've been enjoying these. I hope you guys have been enjoying them as well. So please give us some feedback. Let us know your thoughts. If you have any questions that you'd like answered around processing and what processing is and how it can help you, please feel free to leave us a comment, or you can email info@uncoveringgreatness.co.za or nicole@uncoveringgreatness.co.za. And yeah, you can check out all our content on YouTube, Facebook. You can also visit our website, www.uncoveringgreatness.co.za. For now, this is the end of the Uncovering Greatness podcast, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye.